So Disney's Aladdin, well, the new Aladdin, the guy Ritchie directed Aladdin is how we're probably gonna have to refer to it now. Now, of course, yes, this is yet another Disney live action interpretation of an animated Disney classic. Now, initially, I was kind of okay with what Disney was doing with trying to adapt like some of their animated properties into live action. We've seen it done well before. I think they did a great job with The Jungle Book and Pete's Dragon, animated films that I felt were kind of like the lesser stock of Disney, and then you brought in some great directors, and they could breathe some new life into them. And that's exactly what they did. In recent years, though, I think they've become a little bit more dependent on the nostalgia and kind of regurgitating the same stuff we've seen before. This is most evident in Beauty and the Beast, which that was my biggest worry about this thing, about Aladdin, more than anything, which is that it was just going to regurgitate what we've seen from like Beauty and the Beast and not really add much, and the stuff that it would add would just make these big gaping plot holes, or just like make us look at it in a different light, and we wouldn't really enjoy it as much. We just see it as kind of like a watered down version of that animated classic. But thankfully, Ritchie adds just enough tweaks, just enough originality, and expands on just enough material here, that it's not too bad. I had a little bit of fun with this film, actually. I think what I love most about it is how it kind of reworks the narrative a little bit. It's not so much completely redoing the Aladdin story. Like, on a general basis, it pretty much follows like the same motions. But it does tweak it just a little bit here. You have Aladdin played by Mena Massoud, who we actually get to know a little bit more before we jump into his big opening number, where he's dashing across the streets. We still got that scene, but we get to know a little bit more about Aladdin before we get into the big chase scene here. Also kind of like woven into this, also kind of woven in more interestingly, is Princess Jasmine, played by Naomi Scott, and we jump immediately into her at the street bazaar. So we don't know about her first, and it creates a little bit more mystique for her character, I think. So it's kind of like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, we kind of like brush past Jafar here. Not that Jafar isn't terrible. He's actually pretty damn good. Played by Marwan Kanzari. Jafar actually, I think, might be the most interesting revision of the character here, because here he seems more calculated. He's not as kind of like like the mustache twirler from like the animated version. Here he actually seems like he has like a legitimate reason for being angry. He wants to change the law. He doesn't like what the Sultan is, how he's running his kingdom. He thinks they should be invading other places, and he has like this great kind of like manipulative nature to him, more than just like, of course, yeah, he's got the big cane, the big snake cane, which he uses to hypnotize the Sultan, saying like, you will listen to me, which you figure he could just use that to do everything, but whatever. He has bigger plans, I guess. Bigger plans that I like the fact that he doesn't have to put on like the goofy disguise. You might remember the animated version, he put on like a goofy disguise to convince Aladdin to go with him to the Cave of Wonders to get the lamp. Here he's just like Jafar just is in so much control here and knows exactly what he wants, that he can just be right out in the open. He doesn't have to be as like secretive behind closed doors. Like he knows what he's doing here. But of course, we can talk about how much, how great Aladdin is here. I think he's pretty cool. I like that they give Naomi Scott more lines and more songs to sing here than Jasmine had in the original. But of course, we need to talk about the genie, because let's face it. Like, what's the most notable thing from 1992's Aladdin? It's by far the genie, mostly because it's played by Robin Williams. Because Robin Williams has this huge manic nature to him that is just perfectly suited for animation. And now we're taking Robin Williams out of the equation, and we're taking animation out of the equation to have computer-generated effects in a live-action environment. And this is actually probably the most interesting, like, kind of like reworking. Like I said, like Jafar was kind of a more interesting character, but I do kind of like what they do with the genie here. First off, Will Smith playing the genie, he's not trying to do Robin Williams. Thank goodness. There are scenes where he's kind of required to be real like Robin Williams, because he has to sing the similar songs. Like, he has to sing You Ain't Never Had a Friend Like Me. He has to sing Prince Ali. And he's not great at belting out the big lines, but thankfully he does kind of come into his own with this role. He kind of dusts off that kind of like goofy humor that he had been perfecting on Fresh Prince for the longest time. He kind of like dusts it off and like, hey, most of this goofy outfit fits, and it kind of works here. And I like the fact that they expand his character more, so that when they get to the palace, like, because if you watch the animated version, it seems like once they get to the palace, Genie's pretty much like in the background. Like, he has, like, pretty much nothing to do until, like, the third act. Here, they actually ground him as a more of, like, a human character who's kind of, like, going around the palace and kind of has a love interest with Jasmine's handmaid. And it's pretty cute. Because it plays well off of Aladdin trying to woo Princess Jasmine as well. So I like the fact that the kind of, like, the romantic comedy aspect is kind of more focused on in this adventure. And it's cute, it's charming, and it adds actually a few more interesting scenes to it. Like, there's a great dance sequence where Aladdin tries to impress Jasmine with some dance moves. It's pretty funny. They do add more to Jasmine's character by giving her some new songs, which Naomi Scott she rocks this. I mean, like, you have like Will Smith singing, and you have Minna singing, but let's face it, Naomi Scott, she's got the best voice, and they use it well here. Thankfully, Jafar doesn't sing here, because I don't know. I mean, Marlon's not a bad actor. I love him in this role as Jafar, but I doubt he could belt out. I doubt he could belt out the best scenes here. But I do like how they kind of rework it here. They have a little bit of a different energy. It's just like a little bit of a shame that most of the times when it's trying to adhere to the original, it feels like it's kind of going through the motions. Like, it feels like, okay, like, by the time we get to the third act, we pretty much know how the rest of the story is going to go about, and there isn't really much of any change there. What I do like about the film is that because it doesn't have Robin Williams, and because it's not an animation, so it's not like under like a very tight running time, it can take its time. It can expand on a little bit more of the characters. We get to know them a little bit more. And there's a bit more of an emotional connection, I think, between Genie and Aladdin. Not to say there wasn't any in the animated original, there was, but here I think it's a little bit more pronounced. Because let's face it, you're not going to be able to match Robin Williams. You're not going to be able to match that same level of crazy hand-drawn animation from the original. And I like the fact that Ritchie doesn't try too much to do that here. Like most of the scenes they add, they're more charming than anything. They do add a lot more to it. Some scenes, not so much. Like, there's a scene where, like, we gotta have a chase scene, so they turn Iago into a giant, kind of like pterodactyl bird. Do chase that? I guess you gotta run from something in these films, but I mean, taken as it is, I mean, most musical numbers they're charming. They don't sound as great, particularly when Will Smith has to belt out tunes when he has to belt out the big voice, when he's not actually kind of like when he's not kind of like adding his own little flair to it. It feels a little bit hollow. But most of the time when he's like, I know that everyone saw that clip of Prince Ali when he's opening it up here and he has to hit the high notes and he can't quite hit them. But as the song goes on, he finds more to do. He finds some interesting takes on like a few familiar bits of the song. And he does kind of make it his own. In the same way that I think Ritchie makes the film his own. Mena Massoud definitely makes the film his own. Here we get a little bit more interesting aspects of Aladdin as opposed to just, the typical hero archetype here. Here he feels a little bit more stumbling, a little bit more buffoonish. Like, he's not... Like, I mean, it seemed like in the animated original, he just needed a little bit of a kick in the pants to get the confidence. Here, it seems like he really needs a kick in the pants, because he's bashful, he's shy, he can't act quite like a prince at all. When he tries to, it's embarrassing, but hilarious. Hilariously embarrassing. So I think that most of this film works, where I was kind of enjoying it. It's just a shame that because it's still adhering to that formula of trying to make it, so much like regurgitating the original, that it can't really be its own thing. Because I've said this with Dumbo, and I've said this with Beauty and the Beast. If Disney wants to keep making these live action adaptations of their animated properties, they've got to have faith in them. They've got to have faith to be original, to find new stuff, to go into new territory. And Aladdin's getting there. Aladdin is so... It's right there. Like, I was having fun with the film. I love the chemistry. I love some of the songs here, particularly ones by Naomi Scott, but it needs more of that. It needs to. I'd almost wish they just threw out the original script and just let Ritchie do whatever. just do whatever, because you got great sets here, you got great costumes, you've got some pretty good music, and you have the great romantic comedy chemistry here. And I feel like there should be more of that. Even the chase scenes are actually pretty good too. I loved a little bit of that Ritchie editing comes into play here. In particular, the opening bit with Aladdin with the street chase. That's actually pretty cool. It's edited well. It's fast. It's fun, and it's colorful. So I think that Aladdin, it's almost there. Like I want to say, like, I'm very positive about the film. I'm mildly positive as like a recommendation for it, just because, like, if Disney is going to keep making these films, and they are, because they still make money, because mostly for nostalgia, I'm going to say, I think they really do have to have more faith to go more original, and Aladdin's getting there. It's getting there. So hopefully with future productions, they'll let directors kind of do more of their own thing, as opposed to just adhering to the required elements of the animated classic. Because let's face it, Aladdin is from the Disney Renaissance, along with, like, Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King. There's no way you're going to be able to top that classic. So don't even try to just regurgitate. Try to do your own thing. Go new places with it. Make it distinct, so we're not just thinking, man, I could be watching Aladdin at home right now. Because you could. Because if you see this film, you're going to go home and watch it, and you're going to be like, damn, that's a good animated film. It really does hold up. So, for Aladdin, 3 out of 5 stars.